Hello, Mr. Minnick today, making a video that explains to students how to trace in the language Python a for loop that uses two parameters in the range function. Okay, excuse me here. I'm using a mouse instead of my normal drawing tablet, but here is some code that you're likely to see in a real life situation, writing code with the programming language Python. Okay, well this example is hopefully more meaningful than your typical, doesn't connect with the real world situation of, say, math class, until they give you really hard word problems. But let's say that you have no money in your savings, and let's say that you have a for loop that uses the loop variable I, like we've already studied in this class. And we're using the Python range function, where in its parentheses, because it's a built-in function that's built into Python, it's a command, it's a function. When it has two numbers in the parentheses, those are called parameters, also called arguments. And the first number is always low, and the second number is always higher. And then we have some code in the body of the for loop. In other words, it's necessarily indented. Let's say that we have this line of code. Sum equals sum plus 1,000. And the scenario is perhaps a grandparent gives you $1,000 every year of your teenage years. And that would be one way to create a counter statement in Python, sum equals sum plus 1,000. Another way to do it, and I purposely wanted to erase that, would be just to use the shorter plus equals 1,000 variation. They both work fine. And let's proceed and see how much money you end up having at the end of this. So print sum is the question. What number is stored in the variable sum when it's all said and done? Okay, let's start tracing this code. We work from top down, of course. That's how code generally works. The variable sum should have a little area of your scratch paper where you're keeping track of it. It starts at 0. Then the variable I comes into play. It's being used in the for loop. And when there are two parameters in the range function, that first number is considered to be the starting point of I. So 13 is where we start I. Then we execute the code that's in the body of the for loop, and this just means add 1,000 into the variable sum. So that 0 goes to 1,000. Then, because of the way a for loop works, Python knows to loop back up to the top just like a Ferris wheel. Because of the way a for loop works, when there are just two parameters here, you automatically always increment and add 1 to the variable I. You always add 1. You go through the loop again and add this 1,000 in to sum. You go back up to the top in this case, and now it's your 15th birthday. And you go through the loop again, and your grandparent gives you another 1,000. Of course, you're saving it. You're not buying things like iPhones. You go back up to the top of the for loop. I bumps up to 16. It goes through the for loop again. Sum is up to 4,000 now. We go back up to the top of the for loop. I goes to 17. Life is good. You go through the loop again, another 1,000. We go back up to the top of the for loop. I is at 18. 18 is still well below 20, so we go through the loop again. We add the 1,000 into sum. Always putting single slashes through old numbers, kind of keeping track of where we are in case we are off by a little bit. We can see exactly where it happened. We go back up to the top of the for loop. Now when I hits 19, you slow down. You realize that the Ferris wheel operator is only giving you one more trip around the Ferris wheel. So take your pictures now, if they allow you to have cameras up there at the top. Take that last look at Hershey Park. This is it. You're going to have to get off and wait in line again when you're at the bottom. So 19 is still less than 20. So we do go through the body of the for loop. We add $1,000 more to this running total here. Now, officially, the computer does go back up to the top. It doesn't just automatically know that it's done. It does officially, behind the scenes, go back up the top, and this computers are really stupid. It says, it says to itself, if I were to add one more to I, would I hit this number 20? Yes, I would. So don't pull the car any further into the garage. You're going to hit the wall. Don't go another foot. Stop there and end the for loop. So the Google driverless car just knows when to stop. Okay, back to the situation of getting $1,000. No more $1,000. Your grandparents gave you enough. And we now are finished with the for loop, iterating it. And now we execute any code that's remaining in this Python program that's indented out here perfectly with the main line. This S in sum here was indented because Python requires indentation for the body statements in a loop. These are the two numbers you should have circled. Print sum would cause in your console window for 7,000 to be printed out. In this case, I'm not really concerned about the I perhaps, so I'm not printing the I out, I'm just printing the amount of money. And that's how a for loop works when you have two values in the parentheses. Hey, notice this pattern. High minus low. The second number, which is always the higher number, minus low, that 20 minus 13 is 7. Hey, notice 7 times $1,000 gifts every time you had a teenage birthday. Oh, wow. 13 through 19. 7 birthdays. 7 times 1,000 is $7,000. 13 through and including 19, I should say. That's really 7 birthdays. Don't be a fool and say 19 minus 13 is 6. I only will end up with $6,000. You got to actually count the 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I admit, I just counted that out in my fingers right now. Scott W. saw that as a witness, because sometimes I can't do this in my head, so I count things out in my fingers and toes. So really, when you count from 13 to 19, including the 13 and the 19 at the endpoints, that's a total 7. And that's why it ends up being $7,000 and not $6,000. Now, if you ever take the AP exam in computer science, one of the wrong answers is going to be 6,000, and one of the wrong answers is probably going to be 8,000. But that 7,000 is the right answer here. Okay, I hope you have a great day. That was yet another short, informative YouTube video.